Yeah, so you're talking about South America. When were you there again?
So Ajay came to the Philippines on some small stint, and somewhere
Yeah, I was
there I
there
got
for a couple
inspired,
months.
and I was just like, Varun and I were married, but we were living in two different countries, and we were like, okay, we need to start like 2 years into marriage, we need to figure out how to live together. So we said, let's start by a long holiday first. So yeah, I took a I just sold the company, so I took a sabbatical. He quit, and he said, go to South America. So yeah, spent the next 3.5 months in 2019 in South America.
What a time to do it. Just before the...
Yeah, just before. Yeah.
Just
No.
before
The
COVID.
story is I packed my bag for a few months, but we went straight into a lockdown. So Varun and I ended up on the road for 18 months. We were homeless,
In India?
countryless for 18.
You're outside of India?
No, so
What do you
I
mean?
couldn't go back. So we were in South America, and Philippines was the first place to shut borders. So we couldn't go back to the Philippines. So came to India for a bit, then got into a lockdown, then found our way to Dubai because it was the only country accepting people. Then we stayed in Dubai for 4 months, and then it was one of venture trips where whichever country allowed Indians to go to and opened up, we went there. So we found ourselves in Italy for a while, which was quite funny because it was like the epicenter of everything. And then we spent a long time in Malta. So one of those crazy things where we're like in a suitcase and we're like, wherever life takes us, we'll just go. But
listen,
yeah,
that sounds like the best thing that happened to you. As much
I mean,
as
hindsight,
you're like,
probably, yeah, but like, I guess while it's going
no,
on.
I think by 18 months, I was quite
done.
ready to like, I was quite, both of us were quite done. We were like, it's okay. Let's just go back home. Let's make it as boring as it can get.
Yeah.
But I mean, after never living in the same country, we survived 18 months on the road together. So
yeah,
nice.
I'm good.
So Ankita,
went all in.
No story like that for you. Two of you in different countries. You and your husband, none of that.
I mean, no. During COVID, the only thing that happened to me is, like just a week before I was in the US, and I have a family though that lives across. So my parents spend half the time in the US, half the time in India, and my brother is in the UK, and we're all made this great plan that April do this whole family trip. And then suddenly, like I go back March 15th, and I think 20th is when lockdown happened, right? And everything just shut, and everyone is just stuck in different places. And then I think my parents only came back like after 6 months on one of those Vande Mataram or whatever flights they had, right?
Vande Bharat.
Vande Bharat. Sorry.
Vande
Kind of flights, right?
Flight, yes.
Might as well.
It was crazy though, right? Because it was crazy. And then I remember like my brother went. So we were stuck in India. I mean, I was in India. My dad and my sister were in the US, and my brother was the one in London. And I think there it was like in the news it was coming that there's so much COVID there, this and that. And we were thinking he's gonna get stuck over there. Then we got him to the US, and he actually quarantined in the basement for 2 weeks.
Crazy.
He wasn't allowed to come, like, because this is when COVID just happened, right? And everyone thought like literally if you like just come near someone, you'll like get COVID or whatever.
Yeah, we were
enormously bad will happen to you.
Washing vegetables, like keeping the parcel outside for the food outside for a day. I was telling someone yesterday how like this whole thing, like, like when we were getting a parcel, we were using like Dettol wipes and everything, and how when vegetables came, I had bought a vegetable wash, right? But someone in the house actually started using Dettol to wash the vegetables as well. And I was just like, calm down. Man, seems like a dystopian time.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe we went through that.
It's also quite funny how all of us have forgotten everything, no?
Yeah, you give anybody 5 years, it's back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, it's not been 5 years. I was like, living through that, I remember counting 100 days, 120 days, and I was like, man, this is going to change our lives forever. And nothing. It took like a month for everybody to just go back to like, it's amazing. It's such a great quality for humans to forget.
For sure.
So true. By the way, I was going to say, hey, listen, happy Women's History Month. And it's so highly coincidental that we're doing this podcast around Women's Day. I know I've seen Bhavna, I've seen your post. I mean, both of you speak a lot I mean, I think like a lot of the posts go out, but I know, Bhavna, you said you didn't want to do anything around just celebrating this month, but celebrating every month, right? But this might go out in this month. So just throwing it out there. So thank you for doing this. Yeah, so actually, one of the reasons we both wanted the two of you to, and first you said yes, so that itself was huge, right? And coordinating this between the two of you, given that Ankita, you're in the US right now, Bhavna, you're headed to Kazakhstan, so man, epic. So we'll keep this within the hour, and then we'll let you go and have a fun weekend, and Ankita will let you start your day. But the reason why I think both Ajay and I wanted the two of you was, I mean, we've had a few interactions with Ramya, but I think just to see the two of you grow exponentially over the last, well, it's almost going to be 15 years since college. So unbelievable, right? So congrats. And
Ankita, you and I spent so much time together. How did the Ramaya connection never come up?
Even I don't know.
I mean, Ankita and I obviously know each other from the ecosystem, but we forgot we were from Ramaya. Man, it's been that long.
We should actually have like a Ramaya founders and funders meet.
Amazing.
There'll be the two of you and nobody will show up.
I don't think there's anybody.
Yeah. Why do they just the two of you meet and not call it anything?
No. But yeah. True.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I think both of us are super excited to have the two of you. And I mean, the topic is framework for creating more women entrepreneurs. And I think the goal is the two of you, I think, have a lot more insight into this. And I thought we could make it a fun discussion, right? So, I mean, we could jump straight into it. I saw some data, I think that Bhavna, you had put up, right? I think in India, or actually, I don't know if Ankita or Bhavna, one of you had put up saying in India, the first Asian startup hub outside China, women founded startups snagged just 0.3% of the country's total VC funding. Then in the US, the world's largest VC market, female founded startups earn 78 cents for everything invested versus 31 cents generated by Ben. So, I mean, like there's very interesting stats. And Ankita, I think you're doing a lot of partnership. I saw a partnership with Products with Women that you're doing, I think, with your venture, right? So I'm curious.
Yeah, there's a bunch of groups. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm sure the two of you always felt strongly about this, but was there like an awakening? Was there something like, hey, you know what, we need to start pushing this out or pushing this message out more often? Like, yeah, like what's been the reason, and was there like that moment at some point in time?
So I've of course, been in the whole PE VC space now for 14 years, right? But I think for me the turning point came around like between the 2012 to 2014 when I had, worked 5 years professionally in private equity in London, and then kind of moved back to Singapore, India, and said, okay, let me look in the venture space, right? And then started making personal investments first as an angel, but then also as a fund manager. And I think in that entire journey, I realized that there just weren't enough women, right? And very early on from our venture lab in Singapore, we had this great investment called Luxola, which at that time had become Asia's biggest online cosmetic store. And we sold it to Sephora, right? And that was Alexis, second time woman founder. And I think that's what kind of just made me think again. And I said, hey, this is such an amazing story. Like, who gets acquired by such a big enterprise from accelerator level, right? At that point. And this is amazing. And no one is talking about this. I want to do more around this, right? And then I started observing, right? Like, of course, you're part of these pitch days, demo days, meetings. And I realized that why am I the only woman in most of these kind of meetups? And even when women entrepreneurs are coming into these rooms, of course, they're first of all very few. And even if they are, they're like taking the back seat, they're not presenting, and a lot of things. And say if there's a very woman centric idea, say women's clothing or menopause or femtech, whatever, they're pretty much pitching mostly to like 10, 15 men in a room all the time. And those deals are not getting invested because the end user they're pitching to is not a user of that product or service and doesn't understand it, right?
Right.
And so I saw this like repeating, and I said, this really has to change. And I said, okay, I've been investing, but why not invest with a different lens or with a different kind of vision, to kind of really see how we can, through capital, empower more women as entrepreneurs who then, of course, the idea for hire more women. And at the same time, they're kind of building for the women consumer.
Have so much structure and all.
We don't
I
need
actually
structure.
just say that. No, but I think the honest answer is, I think about it a lot, and I think this question comes my way so much. I think my honest truth of why I have started talking the way I do and I keep amplifying it is, it has zero kind of relevance with the work I do and the business at all, right? Like I never talk about 10 Club and I never talk about what we do at 10 Club because I think I've learned to build quietly. But I think it actually, I keep reflecting where this came from, and I truly think it's Ramaya. Yeah, I like truly believe women have like a guilt clock inside. They kind of, like Ankita said, take a step, think, process. But while I think naturally I'm built like that, I think circumstantially I've just been around like so many boys all the time, and I've been in that world all the time that habitually I don't think I stop. Like I do whatever the hell I feel like. I say whatever the hell I feel like. And I think the last couple of years, especially after I've come back to India, I started realizing that it's so weird. Women don't do it. And, as I started doing it, I started realizing that I was starting to talk to very young women, and, they would come to me. They were like, I just want to talk. I just want to be free. So I just do it for them. I think the answer is I do more and more because I just know that I've a lot of young women listening. And I just, even if it changes one person in some way, if somebody wakes up and reads something in some way. And I keep saying this, right? I think, I know this entire podcast is about it, but I think the single thing that I'm constantly trying to tell everybody, and I say it loudly, and, I make mistakes in my posts. The answer is I keep getting this, can you spell check? Can you auto check? And I'm like, dude, it's okay, man. Make a mistake. It's fine. Move on. And I think that's what.
Yeah.
See, that's okay, but the answer is, somebody's like, oh, just get somebody to like check your phrases. And I was like, dude, I don't care. I'm literally trying to say that it's absolutely okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. Yeah. I feel like people are just, and my standard line is like, we all wake up, we all think that the world is watching, but no one's watching.
True.
So true.
So I think that's my single message in life, which is just keep doing whatever, no one's watching. It's interesting. I'm starting to attract the kind of energy that I put out, and it's making my life more rich. So I think it's very selfish, but
true.
I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
So well said. So I think you touched on something interesting. You said a lot of women sort of resonate with this and they feel like their voice is not heard, and they come to you and then they say, oh, thank you for speaking out. Which, if you can be a little more specific with what exactly resonates with them, is it the fact that you're speaking out, or is it the message itself?
I have this theory that most lives are pretty similar, right? If you start kind of accumulating the mundane stuff that keeps happening, it's pretty much the same in a man and woman's life, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So my tactic now is, the minute I feel like there's something that's happened and I'm like, oh, it's an interesting tidbit, I put it out there. Now, whoever wants to resonate, resonates, right? It's not like I'm sitting and building a story. Generally, everything I put out there is happened to me. I never put out anything that's not happened to me. So there is no reference check as such. It's true life incident that has happened. I try my best not to name anybody. So the answer is I'm not doing that to like call anyone out, right? It's just to say, hey, this happens to everybody. This is what I took away from it. And yeah, so I think the answer is anything that I put out there, generally there are one or two people who send you a message saying, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah.
So I think that's all it is. Sometimes it sparks a conversation on the thread. Sometimes it's a personal conversation. Sometimes it's within the team. So if I keep quiet for a few days, suddenly my team is like, what happened? And I'm like, nothing happened. Life just became boring the last few days. But I got really busy, so I forgot. But yeah, I think that's all it is. I'm just talking about everyday life. So yeah.
Do you feel like, and Ankita, maybe, and I feel like both of you in professions where maybe the ratios are slightly skewed, do you feel like you get a lot more unsolicited feedback in general? Or is it just your maybe, maybe there's no way to A/B test it, but you feel like people are giving, because it's like a minority, or because let's say the skew is off, or maybe are we more sensitive to these things? I don't know, like, I would never know, sir. I mean, maybe I'm coming from that lens.
Yeah.
But
I'll just talk from a perspective of, I guess, because I, run a fund, right, where I go, and from a founder's perspective, Bhavna can give her feedback. But like for me, I'm someone who's also raising money as a fund manager, right, and for a specific purpose. So, I mean, for all purposes, I run an early stage tech fund, right? All I'm saying is that let's look at it a little differently and include women-led or women-focused, and in the US here, even underrepresented founders, and bring that talent to the forefront, because our thesis genuinely is that if you have, for you to build a truly inclusive product, service, or platform, you need that inclusivity at leadership levels and within the culture of the company, right? And so that's what I keep talking about. But then you'll still get people who will, say, "Oh, are there women founders in the ecosystem? Oh, are you doing investments in social enterprises? Are you investing in, say, microfinance in rural India?" And that could also be a great business, but I'm not just doing that. And actually, I don't do that, right? But you get that kind of like comments and feedback sometimes when you just talk about women, that they bracket you into like social. And what I tell people is that, hey, we are high performance and high impact. So yes, great returns, but also great impact in the sense that we are being so inclusive, unlike you, right?
True.
And I guess that's the kind of thing that sometimes you have to kind of educate people about when you speak to them, right? But like on the other hand, like Bhavna was saying as well, that you'll get all this amazing support as well from the community or from people. Like just, I've been meeting people here every day, and the other day I met someone who's a very senior person. He's on the board of Happiest Minds. He's been on one of the founders of IBS and New Sigma Found. I mean, very senior guy, right? And I thought, okay, fine. I mean, I wanted to meet him, just like learn what from his work and everything. I thought, okay, fine, it'll be a nice. And then I realized he's like super into diversity, right? He's on the DEI Council of Happiest Minds. He supposedly is working very closely with the state of Boston on diversity. And he was like so happy to meet me. And he's like, wow, you're doing this. I can't wait. And he said this one thing as well, how, because he's on the board of the company he works for, he's like, everyone tries to just check a number off, saying, oh, great, we have like, out of 10, we have 5 women on the board or whatever. But he's like, I'm drilling down and saying that even like to our project leads, how many women are you hiring within your projects, right? How many women are actually doing client-facing work rather than just project management from the back? And it was so nice to see that, right? So for everyone that kind of says, no, there are many more people who actually are working towards this, not maybe talking about it enough, but it's happening, right? So I think that's what kind of motivates us to keep going and working for, because there's so many more people who need this, do this, and are actually leading this kind of stuff.
Tell me this, do you feel like a lot is, like, where are we as of 2023 versus 2013, where like I think the VC space really started picking up? Similarly, Bhavna, like just I feel like the entrepreneurship, if you want to call it, revolution in India, I think maybe the last 12-15 years we're really seeing a lot of them just come out of the woodwork. But like, yeah, how's it been? How is it as of today, according to the two of you?
I'll take this one as a founder, and then Ankita, you jump in.
Yeah.
See, I say this quite openly, right? That I feel like we're so early. Forget as representation. I think even as an ecosystem, we're literally a decade old, right? And it's just natural progression, right? We're not as old as everybody else, so we're so early. Women are catching up. I think India in general leapfrogs with everything, right? There's nothing, and then suddenly there's like a lot. But I think we're, especially when it comes to representation, I think we're just, it's so cultural, it's so deep, it's so biased, it's so from the most funded to the least funded to non-funded. I think that's what that you can count on your fingers in the ecosystem. It's the same when it comes to angel investors. I know Ankita and I have spoken about this. I think I went to her saying, do you know there are like 100 women who invest in India, just 100, who've ever kind of cut any kind of check of any size, right? So the numbers are so minuscule that, of course, we should be proud that there are 100, 200 or whatever on either side, but it is so small. So I think it's progress, but I would always be the person who stands and says, you can never celebrate this. Like, you have to keep pushing forward because we're so far out. And I see when I talk about bias, and this is a conscious correction that I have started making, right? Just because I have started talking about this so in my family, they've started calling out my bullshit, right? They've started calling out the places that I have, and they're like, listen, you're not pristine, you're not like not perfect, right?
Mm.
So I think we all have biases. There is a cultural nuance to everything. So I think it takes really, really long to undo this. I think it's important to understand both sides of the pie, which is there are cultural nuances, there is bias in all of us. So I think the answer is it's going to take really, really long. And the only way to kind of solve this is by really, really forcing as much conscious diversity as possible, right? It's the only way. If it's going to be allowed to happen very naturally, then it's going to take so much time.
Yeah. You need to amplify something. You need to keep talking about something to make people more educated, aware about it, and kind of, you need to also mandate it, right? Like, I mean, there's enough research out there that, for example, if you want more women to progress into senior positions within corporates, you need to mandate it. You need to mandate that, every 12 months, you need to promote a woman. And it's all based on merit, right? We're not pushing some quota here. Okay, that's also a bias we need to break, is because you need to hire women based on merit because that talent is there, not simply checking a number. And you need to basically have policies in place where you promote women working from home if they have to. Because one more thing that I love this concept that I've also realized over time is that equality doesn't mean the same. Like, equality doesn't mean same, right? So you can't just say, oh, okay, now I have 5 women on my board and 5 men. That's great. But what are you also doing within your culture or your workplace to get more women to be in the workplace, right? Are you giving them flexible work options? Do you have like reorientation programs in place after they take a break because of, say, maternity leave or whatever, right? What are you doing above and beyond the same to create equality, right? Because equality doesn't look the same for men and women. So it's not about just making women fit the mold of what a man's world is and say, okay, now we're equal. It's about changing your world on the whole, which is suited for a woman and for a man both. Yeah.
True. And I think, and that seems like things that you can do at the corporate level, of let's say at the work level, at the leadership, right? And this is, let's say people are entering the workforce at like 22, right? And then there's maybe divergence that takes place at different stages. I'm curious to hear if you had to break that down into every stage, whether that's the grade 6 to grade 12. I think there is a divergence that takes place in some sense. I mean, women apparently, there's data to show women do much better in school, they do much better in college, like things like that, right? So if you had to put systems in place or mandates, if you want to call it, at each level, what would that look like?
And to add to that, I think Bhavna mentioned the biases that are there at every level, right? Right from society to education to college, and then you're seeing that divide in college as well. Where is that divide most stark, and at what stage can we have the maximum impact? Is it like with parenting, and do we have to go that minute, or is it more at an education policy level?
Perfect. No. So I said this is my favorite topic, so I'm gonna go into a monologue. Because I feel about this so strongly, right? And I've realized that when I say these things, I've now realized the happiest I feel is when like a lot of young fathers have started writing to me, and a lot of friends who have daughters have started writing to me saying, okay, I heard you say something. Can you please tell me what I can do right? Which I think is so incredible because, there's just this relationship between a father and a daughter. And I'm going to say this because, I mean, of course, any parent and a child is special, but I think, we treat our daughters like they're precious, right? When a daughter falls, like you don't like tell her to like get up and dust it off and walk, right? Like generally for son falls, you're like, don't cry, boys don't cry or whatever. But with girls, you're like, oh no, it's okay, don't. And I've seen so many of my friends through childhood do that, like the minute they fall, like, somebody kind of gushing over them, telling them to be careful. We're always more careful with our daughters. And see, I think in a country like India, it's not safe for women, right? It's not safe everywhere. So you have to be a little bit more cautious. But, if you can voluntarily or like very consciously try letting your daughter fall. I think that's my standard, like, favorite line now, which is, let your daughter fall, let her stand up on her own, let her know it's okay. It's not the end of the world, because I think unconsciously families, parents, just always try protecting the woman. And I think without her realizing, as she grows up, you're setting fear in her, right? Like, you're not letting her do anything on her own, which basically means when it comes to, going from 10th to college, or that college trip, or that first auto ride, or whatever, it's always so much scarier. Whereas with boys, you're generally like, hey, let him figure it out. He has to learn he has to learn it on his own. I think that logic has to slowly start getting applied to girls as well. Because the flip side of all of this is, and I'm sure all of us can say it, right? Like, women are a little bit more afraid, they are a little bit more nervous. They're a little bit more nervous to be by themselves, do things on their own. But I think that's just, so it starts from childhood. If you kind of slowly allow daughters to start doing things on their own, falling, standing up, picking things up, don't go rescue her the minute she needs like help, right? Let her figure it out. I think it just builds like this tremendous amount of confidence. And the word is confidence, because I think once you have confidence and you start pushing boundaries a little bit, you're not careless. I think women generally internally, I've heard that women are a little bit more careful, right? We're built that way. So I don't think it's about being reckless and stuff, but I think it really comes down to confidence. And you start seeing that at every stage, right? Leaving home to go to college, from college, taking that choice to go to work, where you go to work, what you do through all of that. And that kind of culminates in, if you have a choice of the partner you pick. These are all such incredible, large life milestones.
So true. Any similar ideas? I would love to hear also a little bit from you, Ankita, on like anything on the parenting side of things. Now you're a mother, and then also like just growing up. Like, do you feel like there's a certain style which is inculcated?
Yes. Correct. No, I agree with, I think, what Bhavna was saying, because I think who I am today, I really have to attribute it to my upbringing as well, and just the way that I think the culture or the ecosystem that my parents created, right? I've like literally grown up listening to my parents as they were working on their journeys and learning from them, right? But like Bhavna was saying, like, I'm the eldest in my family, so I've literally, I guess, gone through everything with my parents, and they've put on all the responsibilities on me, but they never created a bias, right? It's like literally they were like, oh, now you're 16, whatever, 18, go drive your car, like, and no one's dropping you or picking you up. You take yourself and come back yourself, right? So that kind of things, when you give those freedoms, right, you actually become very responsible as well, right? So till date, like, I've never asked, hey, can you please drop me? Like, how, so small things like these, but they make a difference on how you become and why you become more responsible and independent, right? And so I really have to attribute it to them from a very young age, to actually, like exactly how Bhavna was saying, if I've gone through something, go through it. If you fall in, you fall in. Like, there's no special treatment in that sense, right? I mean, because of my gender, right?
Yeah.
As a parent, of course, you do a lot of things for your children. That's a different thing, but there's no difference, right? And I think even my first job, when I got my first job in London in private equity, my boss was a woman, right? And I still remember this, it was like, I think I'd moved to London and I got this job, and then suddenly, like, I think that winter it snowed, right? And I was like, oh wow. And I was obviously like living off by myself, right? So I was living somewhere else. And I guess she used to live in zone 1. And I called her up and said, hey, I can't come to work today. Like, it's snowing. Like, our roads are blocked, right? And she's like, I'm 45. I cycle to work. You better get to work. And I was like, oh shit, okay. No, but and maybe at that point in time, I was like, what the hell? But whatever. But because of her, I'm not joking. Like, she removed all the other biases that I would have had also, right? Because she was like 45, she had a third kid. She was Dutch, right? So she would cycle to work. But amazing, like, inspiration from that perspective, right? So the people that you kind of work with, live with, surround yourself with, and if they're doing these great things, you kind of, that rubs off you, and you learn that as you go along, right? So it's about, even part of my mission of doing whatever I do is to create those, stories create that inspiration for many more women to know that, hey, you can be an entrepreneur, right? You can get funded. I
Right.
mean, look at Bhavna, right? She started 10 Club and she raised, I think, the biggest seed round at that time, maybe till date as well, right? For women. And she made us all proud, right? When I started years ago, I don't do a good job of talking about myself, but I literally was the very first venture fund for women in tech, right? Now, of course, so many have come up and so many of them are doing great things as well. So, all great. But basically, it's about talking about ourselves and, creating, you know, kind of people to look up to. Like, because I thought about it. I said, say I see something on LinkedIn, or if I go for a conference or whatever, it's those personal stories, personal journeys of people that I can see and I think I look like or I can relate to, that I get super inspired by, right? So we need to create a lot more like them. And that was my purpose of building this fun platform and now community and all those things. But it's true. And so it's gonna take time, because someone like me or a Bhavna, I think we're very lucky to have had that ecosystem at home or at a school or at a work, and then at a personal level, and that we can bring this now forward. But so many people don't get that, right? And like, even going back to like an old question that we were discussing, but like, we last year launched this accelerator program for women, right? Because it was part of my kind of mission to see that how can we build a community and get more people in the ecosystem to amplify entrepreneurship further. And what I did was, like, we opened applications, and the last week before we were closing it, we said, let's do this whole concept of open office hours. Let's just open up a Calendly link and tell founders, hey, come and meet us, book a 15-minute slot to pitch to us. Super casual, like in Bangalore. I thought, okay, fine, people in Bangalore will come and meet us. You won't believe it. It was first of all fully booked out. People had taken trains, buses, and planes to come to pitch to us. Like, people came from like some place in Rajasthan, someone came from like somewhere in Jharkhand, and I was like shocked, right? I was just like, oh, like I didn't realize this, and I'm like, I don't know, so thankful. And then at the end of it, I thought, oh my God, now like I had this whole responsibility to like do something more for them or whatever. And then at the end of it, these 3-4 women came to me and they're like, thank you for doing this. No VC talks to us. Like, we send these 100 LinkedIn requests, nobody accepts our request because we are not anyone in that sense, and nobody replies to emails. You gave us a 50-minute slot to talk, and hey, guess what? This whole week we spent time here in Bangalore. We met 50 more founders.
Nice.
Right. So even if you don't invest in us, it's okay, because now I am part of this founder ecosystem. And I felt so nice that for me, it was a small thing of come and meet me, right? But for these founders, it was like a game changer, because I think we're very lucky in cities like Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi.
So
but like
true.
when you're in a small tier 2, tier 3 city, you don't even know like where to go to start your startup or who to talk to. And I mean, imagine women, right? So these small things, the ecosystem you create and the messaging you put out continuously will make that difference.
I'm going to add one more thing here, right? Because Ankita spoke about, I think it's absolutely important to talk about founders. But at this point, Ankita, I'm sure you've even seen like, and you and I have spoken about this, right? A lot of women, maybe not founder material, but just the fact that they kind of join early stage ventures, they see what's possible. It's what I see, right? And going back to the conversation we had, a lot of, and I'm not talking about Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, like Ankita said, it's, tier 2 cities where they're a little bit more protected, right? There are a lot more rules, there are a lot more regulations. And suddenly, I'm just going to talk about a couple of people who joined us. We're not a very large team, right? And I'm not an easy person. Like, I think there are people who just assume that, like women are going to join my team and I'm going to love them and like mollycoddle them. I'm not. I actually think I'm a little firmer with them, because I'm like, listen, maybe you've been treated like, you'll break, but you won't, so actually a lot of young women who joined me very early on, I think it's just so nice to watch them, because you watch them get scared and then you're like, listen, I'm going to be tough on you, but I promise you will not break. Try it. And I think the first time they start watching the boundaries that they can start breaking, you just start seeing that immediate confidence coming, right? And then you realize that it's so unfortunate that, I mean, my parents were very hard on me. It was like military school growing up, like I was just, but it just made me hardcore. And it's just so, even when they're in their 20s, early 30s, when you start watching them say, hey, don't worry, I'm here, go try it. I'm here, but go
Yeah.
try it. And if you're going to get hurt, it's okay, but just go try it. And I think it's just it's such a simple thing to do. So actually, it's a message for a lot of women, right? I've applied those logics to different women. Some women break and they hate it because they've never dealt with criticism or like things that are hard. But a lot of them blossom out of it. So I think if it's a larger message to women out there, if someone's being hard on you and pushing you forward to do the hard job, sometimes it's a good person in your life.
Right.
And the good ones who come and say, listen, don't worry, stay home, I'll take care of you, don't worry. I don't know if they're doing you a service or a disservice.
Yeah. I feel like the ones who actually give you feedback maybe actually care a lot more. But I mean, not
Yeah.
unsolicited, sure, and like with the right, like factual
Yeah,
feedback.
of
right?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the don't worry,
Constructive.
why do you need to work?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like the typo in your LinkedIn message. Not those folks. But
I liked the way that conversation flowed. Like in the beginning, I think I was like, oh man, all these negative impacts and stereotypes have such a compounding effect, especially, and it's so true, like all the stuff Bhavna said. But then I think at the end of that, I think all these positive changes that Ankita mentioned, and also Bhavna, you're talking about, like that itself, even late in a career where women don't have that experience, those changes coming in late in a career can also just bolster it so much.
I mean,
yeah.
see,
Yeah.
again, I think we just need to realize everyone's an adult, right? You know,
Right.
when somebody, it's coming from a place of concern and saying, you can be respectful and give feedback, and you can say, hey, I'm doing this for you. And then you can just be outright like, so I think there's a difference. But I don't think there's an age to do this. I'm sure Ankita's also seen it across age groups, right? Like young teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, a lot of women coming back from maternity, and oh man, the amount of guilt that is wrapped with is a whole different one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know I feel this topic just has so many opinions and it's just all over the place. Like some people say, oh, women should be given more opportunity. Some people say, oh, they've been held back, it's her decision. Like, how do we approach this topic for just someone who has no clue and who really doesn't have an opinion on the matter? I mean, I think we try to create equity and equality everywhere, but when there are so many different opinions, how do we approach this the right way? Because I also think it doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll probably repeat myself again, but like I said, I think it's an awareness process, right? Where people who had all those things working in their favor, they have the ability to speak up or provide that opportunity or base. They need to go out and talk about it more, do it more. Like we said, it has to happen, at home from your parents, or whether it's in school from your teachers, or whether it's the workplace from the employers. But it really kind of comes from a place of leadership, as I always say, from the top, right? Because that's when they'll make it a culture or a message which is approved, or it's acceptable within the entire kind of it percolates down basically, right? And maybe I'm not sure if I'm answering what you're saying exactly, but the idea is that a lot of people don't know, right, how to go about this or how to approach this, but some strong voices or platforms or people have to just talk about this and make people aware that, hey, these opportunities are available for you, and these things are acceptable. It's fine. You can take maternity leave, you can come back from work, you can work from home, or whatever it may be, right? You just don't. It's wrong when we as women make assumptions and then create biases for ourselves, and it's also wrong of other people who make assumptions and make biases for us women as well, right? Like, who are you to tell me that, oh, now that you're getting married, you're not gonna work, oh, you're having a kid, so you won't come back to work, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to hide the fact that I'm pregnant, right? And all those things, right? So slowly but surely it will change, but it's about both parties having a voice, right? Like, I remember a lot of times initially I would meet people who are, say, working, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna have a kid, so I'm gonna just quit my work. right? And I said, but
Right.
why would you quit? Of course, if you want to quit for some time, of course, you will take some time off because you need to have a kid and give some time. That's completely acceptable again. But you don't have to quit your job for that. And then I told them, like, did you even ask your employer or your boss or your company? They're like, no, we'll just, I know that they're going to say no. And I'm like, no, you have to ask, right? Like, be the
Yeah.
voice for yourself. And that employer also needs to like not be so like, they need
It's
to also
okay.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's bad on both parties, right? So I always tell people, like, you have a responsibility as a person, first of all, to ask and push yourself. You need time off, ask for it and tell them, hey, this is like, I work. I mean, I'll work after some time, I'll come back slowly, maybe after 6 months and full time after 12 months. But you put that out there, right? And other people need to give an opportunity and not shy away from it, right? So a lot of things have to change, but like, I mean, you need to really stand up for yourself, basically,
And-
just generally.
And
Yeah, and
Ankita,
ask for things. No one's gonna give it. Yeah.
right. I mean that's one category, which is, hey, I'm going to quit. The other one, I think Sheryl Sandberg talked about, like, this whole quiet quitting, right? Like, you get pregnant and then slowly you start, like, just the amount of time and focus you're putting towards work kind of diminishes because your maternity is going to kick in. And that's when the divergence takes place, right? So even have you started seeing that as well, as just like it's funny. I mean, I've been married to Preeti for like the last 4 years, and it's crazy, like, to see she's a high, I mean, strong. I mean, I've never had that perspective because I always had a brother, but just to see a woman beside you and, like, put in the effort. I mean, you get so much perspective that you don't get otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious, is that also, like, have you started seeing that in the workforce? This slowly switching off 6 months before your, let's say, due date, if you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine, right? So this comes back to my point that equality is not same. Yeah, so there are times in life where a woman has to physically take off, right?
Right.
You can't blame her for that. It's not her weakness.
Right.
It's not like
100%.
she's quitting, but you haven't created a atmosphere for her to continue, right? So why? I mean, in 12 months, to be honest, nothing really happens. Like, in our head, we think, oh my God, like, that's it and everything, but
100%.
actually nothing. Like I had my kid, right? Like, and literally, like, I think 3 days after, like, because I run a fund and my quarterly report was due, right? And even though I passed on everything to everyone, still they were like, call me, and I'm like, okay, and I was doing, and I was like getting scared and so worried. And I remember, like, I was just so on it because I was just like, I'm not an employee, right? I can't quit. It's in the end, it's my fund, so everything has to still go on. And now if I think about it, like, I was just fretting for no reason,
Yep.
right? Like, nothing literally happened other than, I mean, yeah, there was one of these things that suddenly, I need to send something out, this, out, this, that. But even the other people in my team could have understood, and even I didn't have to fret so much, right? And someone like me, so strong, and so this thing was also in that situation. But what I'm saying is, it's like, you just have to, like, take that time off and know that it's acceptable to get pregnant and also take time off.
Absolutely.
You
And
know,
I think
and yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead.
No. So exactly. So, I mean, and again, I can talk about this in different ways, but I'm just kind of going back to my journey as well. I think I should have also been more assertive about it and been okay with it. And I'm learning as I go around, right? And that was a time, and that time I didn't know, what to expect. Now, 5 years forward, like, I'm working more than I used to work before as well, right? And I have a kid, and everyone's been supportive at home, my husband, my in-laws, school, everything, right? So everything falls into place, basically. And I want to tell all women that there are times where you will doubt yourself. It's really difficult. I don't deny it. But you can come back, and you need to ask and go out there for yourself. And other people also need to create that culture for you. So surround yourself around supportive, positive people if possible, right? Or do that for yourself.
So well said.
I
And
felt
I think
like it's like, I'm done.
no, but
Yeah.
it's so true. Like, especially the point you made about 12 months it is truly nothing, especially if you have someone as an employer, if you have someone on your team who is this immense talent, and that immense talent says, I'm gone for 12 months and I'm coming back. You are going to be like, please come back. Take all the time you need.
Yeah,
Like,
we always tell people, please come back. And I'll just give one last thing. So there's a lady here in the US. Her name is Jessie Draper. She also actually runs Halogen VC, which is a female-focused fund here. She's Tim Draper's daughter, but she's super cool as well. She wrote this article saying, you just delivered a whole baby. take the whole maternity leave. You know, like why are you like half-assing the maternity leave as well? You just built a kid, like you just had a
Yeah.
baby, take the leave, like, you know. So really cool. So I think just what more strong women or people who can at least have a voice go out there and talk, and that enables other people to have a voice and women to have a voice as well. Yeah.
Right.
Just to make
Bhavna?
this interesting, shall I ask Ankita the opposing questions?
Yes, because you were smiling the
Yes,
whole while, and I was
yes,
going to
yes,
ask
Yeah.
you.
please,
No,
please.
I'm smiling because one, I never take this question because one, I'm not a parent, I'm not
Right.
a mother. I feel like people assume I know what this is, and I really don't.
Mm,
You know, and I'm very careful. I'm not politically correct, but with this one question, I'm very, very mindful. Um, but I think it is so complex. It is
agreed.
so
Yeah.
complex. It's so complex because it's not as simple in any way, right?
Yeah.
I think the first problem is, and I mean, 10 Club's been 2 years old. We're literally just clocking 2 years of me being the company, which is so 15 months of having anyone else in the company, right? And in the 15-month journey, listen, we're early stage startup. You don't get pregnant women into early stage startup because, man,
Mm,
stress, life, and you know, it's a common question that I ask anyone who's just like, and we've hired 3 women who are into their first trimester of pregnancy, right? So knowing that in 4 months they're gonna like have to go away and stuff, and I feel it was morally right for me to take that plunge, saying if I don't do it, then I can never expect anyone else to do it,
Right.
right? But it's always been questioned in my head also, which is how's this going to work? You know, 3 months in, it's not about employees who've been there and get pregnant, right? So there are different circumstances, different streams. The 2 of them who came and joined me took the 6 months maternity and never came back, right? But and I get it. It's like I would never hold it against them, right? Because it's a chance you take, and you're like, you know, I'm gonna keep trying because I know how complex this is. But there are so many sides to this story, which is, you know, women eternally and forever have this, and I say it right, women, mothers or not, have this massive guilt machine inside, uh, which is forever feeling guilty about everything. It's just the way it's built, right? Like you apologize more because you are guilty, right? And I'm not saying feeling guilty is bad. Honestly, it's just I feel like it's a deep conscious or something, but we're always feeling guilty, right? The magnitude of guilt changes, but I think the minute you become a parent, that just must be amplified at a whole different level, right? Now, it is also on women to like, see, I don't know, right? That's the thing. I've never felt that guilt. I have my own different versions of guilt. I don't know why my husband is still married to me for the amount of time I spend with him and the crazy shit I do. But you know, those are different kinds of guilt. But I'm guessing with a child, it's a very different level of guilt, right? And especially if you've just been through the whole journey and nature's made you that way. So it's so hard to solve this problem because it's not maternity leave, you know, that I think the 6 months, 8 months, whatever maternity leave, whichever country you are, I think it is what also happens pre and post, like you said, the quiet quitting, and what happens post, because it's not that you kind of snap out of it and you come back, right? There's a
Yeah.
complete adjustment for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And in that period, I think a woman has to like really ask herself, you know, it's a balance. I think it's a very, of course, it's the environment and the world around that has to adjust 100%. And I don't think I'm going to talk about India. We're not there at all, right? We're not
Yeah.
built to manage this as a situation at all. But I think for women who don't have support at home and stuff, right? I mean, that's a whole different conversation. And I think that's a unfortunate situation. But I'm also talking about women in my own circles where I've seen who have really supportive partners, who have very involved fathers, who have a good support system around, right? I think somewhere women have to find it within them also to say, hey, this is what I want from my life. And hence it is going to be a little uncomfortable after the 6 months, 8 months. And if I'm going to take a call of going back to work, I have to manage my own guilt. Like I need to find a way to manage my guilt and distribute work and figure it out. It's a very hard conversation. So for me, I would always, and this is a conversation I've had with my closest friends, right? I'm not talking about colleagues and people I don't know, but friends who I deeply care about. And I know that she's deeply ambitious. And, you know, this is that period where you'll have to figure it out. You know, you have to kind of balance your own guilt and say, hey, you know, I am going to find a way to, and that's what Ankita also was saying about do it for yourself, right?
Right.
It's very hard. So I think it's a very, very complex topic. It's the environment, it's the ecosystem, natural clock, it is the guilt monster, it's everything. It's like the world is being built to say women sit at home.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to fight these mental blocks, right? But I'm curious, what's the let's say, you know, when I have friends who also started something on their own. We get together and we talk about things, right? Like we talk about, let's say, our personal life. We'll talk about, man, it could be specific work situations. What do you think is a solution? Are the conversations very similar, or do you feel like there are some, like the 3 standard deviation conversations also that are very different between 2 women entrepreneurs, or the issues that you guys talk about supremely different, which
Oh, yeah, it's very hard at the end of the day. And that's what I'm saying, right? For me, it had to be like a conscious decision saying, if I don't take this call and if I'm having these conversations saying what happens after 6 months, you know, but that's the thing, right? You have to take that bet. And I think what we do very, very, and this is why I said the number 3, right? In 10 Club's journey, it's number 3. I think what happens in a lot of cases is when you get burnt once, you're very scared to do it the second time. But I think the onus is on everybody's side, right? It cannot be. And that's the thing, it's not the woman's fault in any way, right? It is a very difficult situation. So I think everybody, every stakeholder has to find it within themselves saying, hey, you know, one person is not the benchmark. You have to keep doing it. And then, you know, then the system has to change. The support around it has to change. So I don't know, Ankita, if you have a different answer to this, but I think even as a female founder, you know, when you're struck with this situation, you definitely take a moment and say, okay, this is going to be difficult. And if you can cross that line, then you have to ask yourself as the founder, employer, what can you do to ease the situation, right? Because it is only in your benefit to say, hey, how can I make this flexible and comfortable enough? Because this person is incredible. I've taken a bet on them. This is a situation. I'm betting on this person, not for the short term, but for the long haul, which means if I can make this comfortable and support her through this process, when she comes back, I want her back in every way possible, right? So it's a long journey, but I think all of us pause, but it is as much on the employer to say, how can I navigate the situation? Because I'm betting on the individual and for the long term.
Yeah. I mean, just to add on and bring some perspective onto this, agree with everything that, you know, Bhavna said. I think, again, it's about you, like as the individual, to make these decisions for yourself, for the good of yourself, right? So what I've also learned over time is, because mom guilt is real, right? But then I also have gone through a lot of things and I realized that, hey, I'm not just a mom also. I'm myself, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I work, like I run my company, like, you know, and I want to be financially independent. Like I want to be a lot of things for myself. You have to, you have to think about yourself and others, but you have to think about yourself in life. Like this is something that is funny for me to say this, but I realize that in life, you have to be a little selfish to be happy. Okay.
Right.
Because otherwise, especially, and I think especially with women, this happens. And this is all that I have learned over time, right? And especially the kind of personality that I have. I'm the eldest child. I'm a Cancerian. I don't know. I've always done things for other people. Like literally, it's like if there's like, you know, there's a pizza on the table and there's 8 people, I'll first serve everyone else and I'll be like, okay, if you want this one slice for me, I'll take it. Like I've never ever served myself first. I'm talking about everything that I've done, okay? I'm giving an example. I mean, I'm a VC, but I've never even asked people for money, right? So, but I'm just giving, I've had to change so much to be like this person for myself, right? So what I tell women is that, yeah, you have to be a mother, you have to be this, and there'll be a time when you become a mother. It's very, you don't know all these questions and answers. But if you like your work, you go back to it because that keeps you, that is your identity is not just a mother, basically. Your identity is that super boss at the work or this super financially independent woman. And I'll be really honest, even your child will respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
People, when you are independent, right, everyone around you also respects you, right? You create these boundaries, you create these great things for yourself that everyone starts respecting you. So I mean, yeah, this is like, again, another very different topic, and I'm trying to put all my thoughts together. But I think it's just about it just boils down to the fact that I really have realized over time that if you believe in going back to work, you go back to work. If you like your work, you should go back to it, right? And you should do all these things and not just get stuck in one role. It's very easy to be in that role because it's amazing to spend time with your child, right? You're like literally you give birth, and that's a human being, and he's so small, he or she is so small, and you want to spend all your time with them. But in the day, after a point, even they go to school from 9 to 5, right? You do your own thing because these kids grow up. Like I have a 5-year-old kid, but he has his own mind now. Like he wants to go to school, he wants to go to his football class. I don't think he wants me in his face the whole day as well, right? Like
It's already begun.
Yeah, and probably when he's 10, he'll be like, who are you? I mean, I don't know, I'm just joking, but I'm just saying that, everyone has their own life, like whether it be your husband or your parents or anyone. So go out and do your own thing. And I genuinely, I'm a huge advocate for people working so that you can be financially independent and have another identity for yourself. Because it's very easy to get lost into being a homemaker.
Add to that point, the world kind of paints this picture of the sacrificial mother.
Yeah.
I don't know if the sacrificial mother is ever very happy.
No. I mean, I don't know.
There's usually resentment. Yeah, true.
No, it's true. Like I spend time with so many different people. So just last week I went for dinner for one of my dad's friends' 70th birthday. And I was at a table full of just people who are, of course, 60, 70-year-olds. And they were like, we regret that it was great. We wanted to spend time with our kids. But now, we should have gone back to work once they were in school, right? Because now we have these huge houses and we give like all our time to initially our husband, then our kid, and then the house. And like we all have 2, 3 kids, but they're not living with us. I mean, I'm just giving a different example, but basically these are things that happen later to women, and it's sad, right?
True.
So, and maybe someone didn't tell them at that time. Nobody actually tells you these things also.
Yeah. This is the point where, going back to the first question we spoke about where the breaking points are. I think this is a massive breaking point, and I don't think it's intentional. You have just gone through labor, you have given birth to this whole human being, you're fragile, you're weak. Actually people who love you and care for you, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friends, again, it's very individual, right? But it is at this point where they're like, oh man, let me just protect you. Let me take care of you. You don't have to do anything, right? It's the same childhood problem, right? Which is you step in to protect. But I think the answer here is this is that breaking point where you're like, hey man, I love this person, so I'm going to be a little hard-shelled for this and say, I will support you, but I know it's uncomfortable. Go out there and do what you have to, because if this point I don't give you hard love,
right,
it's going to get really hard for you in the future. Again, very easy to say, but I think this is where family has to step in. I have friends who've actually made videos of pre-birth to themselves saying, these are messages you show me after birth so that I hear myself. I think it's a great way, right? Which is everything you're feeling during pregnancy, you make videos of, so that when all the hormones kick in after birth, you can listen to your own reason, voice, and say, push yourself through this period, because if you don't get past this is the hard climb.
Interesting.
That's great. One just in the middle of a serious topic, one very funny thing. Ankita said that as the oldest, she gives out the pizza first. I'm also the oldest child. I have never given out pizza before eating it myself.
She also said she's cancerian.
Yeah.
Maybe that. There has to be that, because I've never always take like 4 slices for myself.
Yeah, similar. I grew up with an elder brother. Man, you don't put your hand out, your pizza is over. So You go dive it straight. And my mom,
I grew up as
unfortunately,
a
had to make a
single
lot of
child. I
dosas.
still eat everything. Like,
Got
I
all
don't
the
eat
pizza,
anything.
yeah.
I'm like, nope.
Hey,
Tell
listen, we
me.
have like,
Wow.
Ani, I don't know, we have like 5 minutes left. I don't know what you wanted to touch on, but I was hoping we could spend those last 5 minutes on the initiatives piece.
Yeah.
And
Like,
maybe you can just
in the initiatives piece, being like, let's say, any founder, but let's say specifically if a woman wanted to start something or she wanted to be a founder today, like, how should she navigate the ecosystem? What are the initiatives that she can tap into? I think if there's some things that you want, the two of you want to walk through.
or a bit like, or if you know of any accelerators, organization, people who are doing just cool things.
Yeah,
That
that might be cool.
From her ventures, you guys. Just saying.
Right.
I think it's the ultimate
It's a
accelerator
cool
for
name,
a
by the
woman
way.
in
Such a cool
in
name.
any form in this country. I think Ankita is an incredible capital partner to have on your table, to a point where I still send Ankita messages saying, please, can you come join my board? Like, please, can you be on my board? Because I think she's just incredible. She's been part of this ecosystem for so long. Ankita, I'm going to promote you here. You don't have to do
No,
anything.
thank you so much. Thank you.
No, because I deeply believe this, right? I mean, I think she's been part of the ecosystem. Like she said, she was the first, and nobody, I don't know if she talks about it enough, but
Yeah.
I've been part of Stronger in some little way, like, in a small little way, but I've been to these events. They're huge. It's not about, it's just not just the money, right? But it is just the process. I think it is so deeply enriching for any woman that I don't know anybody else in the country who runs something that's incredible. I think it's very easy to put something like this as an eyewash and run as a program. But I've watched this in person at events. I've seen the women who come. I've seen the women who interact. I've heard the sessions. I've seen the amount of work that's gone into preparing the program. So I don't know if there's anything else. I would say I know she accepts applications in the hundreds, and I know it goes through like a very long process. So I would say this first and everything else later.
Wow,
I mean,
thank you so much.
That speech should lead your series A. So what are we waiting for, right?
No, but no, thank you, Bhavna, and I think it's for women entrepreneurs to kind of find people like Bhavna who have been very supportive in the ecosystem to a lot of women out there, right? So I think find your tribe. Of course, I did this years ago, and I continue to do this, and I continue to back this with money. I think that's the differentiator. But the really good thing is, at least a lot more people are talking about it, right? So there are a lot of initiatives, communities that are spinning out, some very meaningful, right? So, go out and put yourself out there, go for these events, figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But, thanks to the internet, there's so many things, so much information available online. LinkedIn is a great source, to connect with people, online events or offline events. And of course, yes, we obviously have run a fund for so many years, but we've also we run Accelerator now. And that's exactly the mission, was to give more women the chance to apply and be part of this community. But I know, like, there's, for example, there's Sequoia Spark. There's another one that Kalari has, kind of launched, etc. Right? But these are all great initiatives, and I think it's great. We just need more people to back people with capital. So walk the talk and back it as well. But it's a great time to be a founder in the ecosystem, right? To build. I think if you're genuinely building something and solving for a problem, there is capital out there. I'm not saying it's easy. We all have to meet hundreds and 200s of investors, and then we get the right one to come and anchor, and then everyone comes in. That's kind of how it works. It's not, I mean, maybe one or two people get lucky in the first meeting, but for the rest, it's hard work. Anything is hard work. But if you genuinely are trying hard and people see your passion and you're building and you're going to go forward, people will back you. So do your homework and go out and put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few minutes. So I actually, random idea. I think Ankita and Bhavna, the two of you should maybe start a podcast. Or
100%.
some form of a video
Listen,
where you can start interviewing.
I don't know why, 1 minute, I don't know why you think we've not spoken about this already.
Wait, I don't
Like,
see
do it.
because where's the podcast? I don't see a podcast out there, the two of
It
you.
will
But-
come. There's a right time. There's a right time, a right place. It's all
Yeah.
happening.
Oh.
Like all the we're like, listen, we can't ask the same questions. We need to get deeper.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
So
listen,
waiting for the right time.
I genuinely think this was great. I think if we eliminate the lag in the internet, this this conversation, like I really think we should do this in person. And we could do this topic and just so much more. I think this conversation has just been so great. There's just been such
Yeah,
honesty and transparency. Everyone's been really forthcoming, and thanks for that.
You look a little scared. Did we scare you?
Me?
Yeah,
No, I just look like
we're
that all the
super
time.
scared.
That's just my face, yeah.
That's just Ajay's face. He's like, oh my god, oh my god.
Just constantly cautious. It's what keeps me
But
protected.
yeah,
You
we
gotta
can do
join
a
these
part 2 in
groups.
person.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
Perfect. Thank you
Cool.
guys. I'm
Great.
gonna
Thank
go
you.
and
Yeah. Enjoy your trip.
just airport now. Thank you.
Please do.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for a lovely conversation. Okay, see you guys all
Likewise.
in Bangalore.
Yes.
See you.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.